Today on the Big Six in 60, Michigan takes down UConn for the national championship.
Man, that they did not make it easy.
The Magic get an impressive win over the Pistons.
We got to ask the main question, is it time to believe again?
And Dexter Lawrence wants out of New York.
So, Dexter's not happy.
This is the Big Six in 60, the six biggest national sports stories from our local experts at the Locked On Podcast Network. We bring you the real story, why it matters, what's next, who wins the big game, and more, all in 60 minutes. The Big Six in 60 starts now. Thank you for making the Big Six in 60 your first listen of the day. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Download the FanDuel app now by visiting FanDuel.com and win $300 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. Michigan is the national champion for the first time since 1989 after taking down UConn last night 69-63, finishing off a remarkable run with Dusty May at the helm. Here's Isaiah Hull from Locked On Wolverines to break it down.
69-63 over UConn. Man, that they did not make it easy. UConn made it hard all the way through, but Michigan, after going down by 3, came back, had a couple small runs, and as much as UConn kept on trying to make it a game, they just made it uncomfortable the whole way through. Michigan perseveres and wins the national championship. First time since 1989, first Big Ten one in 26 years. Guess what? Michigan has just as many national championships as the other school that claims to be a basketball school. Just wait until November. Wait till basketball. Well, maybe not this year. And I think the most impressive thing about it, honestly, was the fact that Michigan played terrible on the offensive side. I mean, defensively, it played great. Offensively, I thought there was a lot that Michigan left on the table. For the first 10 minutes, Michigan didn't really play its style of basketball. Actually, probably more than that. It was eventually they started kind of okay, after the half, you could see Michigan was like, hey, what we normally do? We normally run a lot. So let's do that again. But the first 10 minutes, Michigan felt really tight. It felt really like it just wasn't itself. It wasn't really doing what you would expect Michigan to do. It was being a little impatient. I mean, it was still passing the ball and all, but it was being a little impatient. Michigan only finished with 7 assists in this game, which is wild. 7 assists, 10 turnovers. Weirdly, the turnovers kind of came in late because obviously they got 2 on the final 15 seconds or whatever it was. But ultimately, this was the most un-Michigan basketball game ever, which kind of leads to the point that we've been long making is that however you want to play, Michigan can beat you. Because UConn wanted to slow the game down. UConn wanted to take up all the possessions. They wanted to limit Michigan. They definitely made things difficult down low. You could see there were always whenever a guy wasn't already on his spot, there were already 3 Huskies waiting for him. And then even when he was there, they were quick to get to him. They weren't going to let a die beat them. And he finished with 8 points. Michigan was 2 of 15 from 3. And Cadeau and Trey McKinney with the most clutch shot. I mean, it was for a true freshman in that moment to hit that shot when he did, because that was a 5-point swing. UConn was about to score a layup. They missed it. Michigan has the quick outlet. They get it down. Trey McKinney gets the shot off. Very well, instead of being I think it was a 9-point game at that point, or 7, something like that. I think it was 7-point game. It could have been a 2-point game or a 4-point game. I can't remember the exactly how that went. It's all a blur at this point. But I thought that everything that you would normally expect for Michigan, got an eyelash on me somewhere. Everything that you would expect from Michigan, they didn't do. Right? We are accustomed to seeing Michigan drain a lot of threes, run a lot, throughout, have a high scoring game. They didn't do that. We're accustomed to seeing Michigan losing the turnover battle. They didn't do that. You're accustomed to seeing Michigan struggle from the free throw line. They didn't do that. And that was really the difference in the game, was getting to the free throw line. 25 of 28 in this game. 25 of 28. And they did this also with a very clearly injured Yaxel Lendabor, who still managed 13 points, playing 36 minutes despite having one leg. I mean, that was about as gritty of a performance. It was a weird game. It wasn't like a fun game to watch. Kind of like the Washington National Championship. It's kind of the same thing as, I mean, obviously against Alabama in football. That one went to obviously overtime. It wasn't like this fun romp, but it ended up being fun in the end. And then Washington just kind of became like all right, well, now they're going to do it. Right. And that's kind of what this ended up being, right? Like just a little bit too close for comfort. Didn't really pull away. I know against Washington in football, they did pull away, but how blessed are you if you're a Michigan fan to have a football national championship just 2 years ago, a basketball national championship just 2 years after going 8-24, and you've got hockey as the 1 seed in the Frozen Fours in just 2 days, 3 days, depending on when you're watching or listening to this. I mean, it does not get better than that.
The tournament is here, one of the best times of the year. Brackets, buzzer beaters, upsets, it's non-stop action from tip to final cutdown. And right now, FanDuel is giving new customers a way to stay in the action all tournament long. Here's how it works. You can get up to $300 back in bonus bets every single day for 10 days. That means 10 chances to stay involved throughout the entire tournament. You can mix it up however you want. Games, futures, or same-game parlays for even bigger payouts. It's perfect for the tournament because every day there's something new. Different matchups, new storylines, and more ways to get involved as the bracket unfolds. So visit FanDuel.com to sign up today. That's FanDuel.com to get in on the action. Welcome back to the Big 6 in 60. UConn came up short in the title game and missed out on what would have been a third championship in 4 seasons. Here's Matt Shinvisky from Locked On UConn with his reaction post-game.
Michigan, UConn, they played the game like we needed to play. I think if you told Dan Hurley heading into this game that the game would be played in the 60s, I think every single one of us would have taken that. I think every single one of us would have taken a rebounding edge of 46-39. I think every single one of us would have said, hey, 11 turnovers, that's under our season average. I think every one of us would have said, hey, we'll take Michigan shooting 38% and 13% from 3. I think we all would have taken all of those things. And that's, I think, what kind of makes me look at this game and feel uneasy about, hey, 69-63, Michigan won the game, yes. UConn dictated play. UConn played the game like they needed to play in order to come out on top. Let's just run through the box score. Then we'll get some of the things that I want to talk about. Alice Karaban, 17 points, 11 rebounds in his final game for UConn. 17 points, 11 rebounds. I know he went 3 of 10 from 3, and I know he wants that 3 back when it was a 4-point game, chance to cut it to 1. And the 3 prior, few possessions, probably a couple minutes prior, he had an open look, and it didn't drop. But 17 points, 11 rebounds. He played the entire 40 minutes. He didn't come off the court. He played a spectacular game outside of the shots not falling, because he recognized that the shots weren't falling. And there was a point where he started to get to the basket. Terrace Reed, 13 points, 14 rebounds. He had 3 turnovers. There were a couple there. I know one was a miscommunication with Braylon Mullins when he was at the top of the key and kicked it out. It was in front of the UConn bench. It was in the second half. Threw it to Braylon Mullins on the wing, and it was just a miscommunication there. That was one of the turnovers. He had 3 turnovers. The other one, early on, I think UConn at the time only had 3 or 4 turnovers. Got smacked across the arm, lost the ball out of bounds, turnover going the other way. Braylon Mullins, 4 of 17, 11 points, 4 of 17 from the field, 3 of 10 from 3, 7 rebounds. Demery, only 20. We're going to talk about this in the second segment, but Demery, 21 minutes. Solo ball, 16 minutes, 11 points. Foul trouble hurt. Foul trouble certainly hurt because Cadeau was able to get 19 points on the day. And I think that speaks to Silas Demery Jr. being on the bench a lot more than expected. Now, Malachi Smith did a decent job, but he's not the defender that Silas Demery Jr. is. So UConn held Michigan to 38% from the field, 13% from 3, like I said. They out-rebounded Michigan 46-39. They pretty much took care of the basketball, but there's 2 major things that we talked about heading in that UConn had to do. Had to. Stay out of foul trouble and shoot the basketball well. And if you go 31% from the field and 27% from 3, I mean, it's not a recipe for success. It's not a recipe for success. And the Huskies lost by 6. They missed 24 threes. They missed 47 shots and only made 21. If you told me that's what they shot, I would have said they lost by 20. But this team played together. They played to the final whistle. They played for Dan Hurley. They played for each other. They played for Alex Caravan. They played for Terrace Reed. They played for every single fan that loves this program. And it's just a tough way to go out if you're Alex Caravan and Terrace Reed, because they went a combined 9 of 26. And I know they're going to look back and say, what could we have done? But just look what they did on the boards against a tough Michigan front. Out-rebounding Michigan. I didn't think UConn was going to out-rebound Michigan. At least that's what everyone was telling me from a national perspective, that the boards were going to be impossible for UConn to win. We got to talk about the whistles because they had a significant impact on this game. To the point where Silas Demery Jr. could only play 21 minutes. Solo Ball only played 16 on the night. And it wasn't because of injuries. It's because of the whistles. In the first half, I think it was 15-6 were the calls. Now, I'm not somebody that sits here and complains about officiating and complains about the referees. And, you know, what makes me a little, I don't want to say hesitant to talk about this, was because UConn did shoot 9 of 33 from 3 and 21 of 68 overall, 31%. But it played a factor in the game. Michigan took 28 free throws on the night. UConn took 16. UConn was called for 22 fouls. Michigan 13. Michigan had 69 points. 25 of those, 36%, came from the free throw line. There were a number of calls throughout that entire first half that it was a 4-point game at the half. And if you take away the Caravan's hook, flagrant, which those calls need to, the flagrant hook needs to go away in the college game, in my opinion. I think it's not basketball. It's not a typical basketball call. It's just something that has started popping up over the last couple of years. They put it in the rule book, and here we are. One of those hook calls changes the complexion of the first half. Now Michigan's up 4 instead of it's either tied or maybe UConn up 1 or Michigan up 1. It did change a little bit of the game. But there were just more than that. We already talked about Terrace Reed getting hit on the arm and the ball going out of bounds, no foul call. Silas Demery Jr., one of the calls where Cadeau ended up getting an and one. It was in the first half. He was underneath the hoop. Cadeau had like the reverse layup. And Demery's caught up with Mara, and Mara's giving him a two-hand shove into Cadeau. To me, and a foul on Mara. And it ends up being an and one. And that was one of Silas Demery Jr.'s fouls, in which he fouled out in 21 minutes. Has Silas Demery Jr. fouled out this season? I don't think so. Additionally, I think it was in the second half. We'll get to that one in a second. Let's keep going through the Demery list, because there were two more on the defensive end where he was playing pretty good defense, I felt like. And he gets called for 2 ticky-tack calls outside the three-point line. Meanwhile, on the other end of the floor, Cadeau's giving him a two-hand shove down the lane on a UConn make, and there's no whistle. I can't believe Dan Hurley did not pick up a technical foul in this game. I would have forgiven him had he gotten a technical foul in this game, because the disparity, especially in that first half, was so significant that it did have an impact on the game, which is why you see a former point guard for a team we don't like talking on the four-letter network about the whistles and the officiating in the game. Again, UConn went 9 of 33 from 3 and shot 31% from the field. But it had an impact. In a game where Alex Caravan has a 3 with like 18 seconds left to cut it to 1, it had an impact in the game. Is it why they lost? I'm not saying that. But it had a tremendous impact because those ticky-tack whistles, especially in the first half, if they called it the same way on both sides, I'm okay. But Demery and Solo being in foul trouble and not being able to be there the full amount of minutes that I know Dan Hurley wanted them to play tonight, because I think had Demery not had 5 fouls or been in foul trouble, I think he was playing a significant portion. I think they were going to be, hey, ankle aside, you're going out there and you're sucking it up, which I know Demery was going to do and more than happy to do. But it limited them. 21 minutes. Solo Ball, 16 minutes. And Solo Ball, he had a good feel from the outside today. I know the last one was a bank in, but he was 4-10 overall, 3 of 7 from 3. And to me, I wanted him in sooner in the second half. I know he picked up a 4th, but I wanted him in sooner. I wanted him in maybe at the 7, 8, 9 minute mark of that second half. But again, they didn't shoot the ball well, which is why I wanted Solo in. But I'm not here to just talk about the whistles all day, because I think the heart and the never quit, never say die attitude of this team was on full display tonight, because this got up to 11. Michigan's been a team and a powerhouse through this entire tournament that has been putting teams away. But UConn never went away. In fact, they kept pushing and pushing and pushing and pushing to a point where I felt Gale at the free throw line, he got a little rattled there down the stretch. He was 2 for 2. He went 0 for 2 on that. Once UConn got it down to 4, he went 0 for 2 from the line. And you're thinking, hey, maybe that door's cracked open. But that's when the Caravan miss that could have cut it to 1. But overall, I got a sour taste in my mouth on this game, because this is exactly how UConn wanted the game to play out. And they had the chances, and they had the opportunities. And you could see Michigan a little bit there at the end, teetering a bit. Which brings me to one of the other calls that I got to talk about. Does everybody remember when Terrace Reed got in the passing lane and you going down there on the break, he saves the ball under the hoop, goes to Solo Ball for the layup? Has Solo Ball ever attempted a layup and ended up on his backside? Or maybe he was helped I think the game was a 6-point game at that point. Could have been 2 shots. And then the very next possession on the next trip down the lane, the same player, Trey McKinney, who had knocked Solo ball down on the layup attempt, gets a 3 on the other end, a 5-point swing. Just on that. Now, we don't know if Solo ball would have hit both free throws, but it's a 5-point swing. Layup, no call, 3-pointer other end. Like, we're talking like 1 or 2 whistles here. And there were a lot of whistles that went the other way or didn't get blown. Which is why I've got a bitter taste in my mouth in the result. Being 69-63. Because, again, UConn out-rebounded them. They could have had a few less turnovers. I don't think Malachi Smith wants to just go out and dribble out of bounds. I think maybe he was helped there. That's another one. That was another turnover. The Terrace Reed we talked about getting slapped on the arm, that was another turnover. So you're down to 9 turnovers just on those 2. Some of them were UConn mistakes. We talked about the Terrace Reed throwing it out of bounds, trying to get it to Braylon Mullins. There were a few others. I think Caravan threw another one away. And Dan Hurley on the sideline, you can see him. The frustration that he had with the turnovers. But again, it wasn't a substantial amount. They pretty much took care of the basketball for the most part. I don't think it cost them the game. Now, could they have used a couple more possessions? Yes. But I think all those 3 things, 1 less turnover, hit another 3, get a couple whistles in the other direction, have Silas Demery and Solo ball the entire game as long as you want them, out of foul trouble. And this game maybe teeters in the opposite direction. But credit to Dan Hurley. He had a perfect game plan. Shots just didn't fall. And in spite of everything we've talked about, UConn was still there at the end. Talk about grit. Talk about heart. Talk about the mental makeup to see this game all the way through, even though things weren't going great. And credit to Dan Hurley for keeping his cool, too. Because he could have lost his mind in that first half.
Welcome back to the Big 6 in 60. The Magic picked up a win over the Pistons, and Orlando keeps building momentum in the East. Here's Philip Rossman-Wright from Locked On Magic to break down the win.
Magic scored their 3rd straight win. I believe it is their 4th win in the last 6. Might be their 5th in the last 7 because I can't add or do math or anything fun like that. So we got to ask the main question. Is it time to believe again? We'll give you the reasons to do so and why there's still some trouble ahead for the Magic. Plus Jalen Suggs, the quarterback, coming up here in just a moment. First, we want to thank you again for making Locked On Magic part of your day. Every day, we want to thank our sponsor, Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDON for $20 off your first purchase. I will not blame you for your skepticism. This Magic team came into the season with such high expectations, such high hopes, as Jalen Suggs said after the game. Nobody is satisfied with how this season has turned out or where this season has ended up. Nobody's satisfied about the thing the Magic are fighting for here at the end of the season. So again, your disappointment is absolutely valid. That the Magic just 3 weeks ago, not even 3 weeks ago, were riding so high and seemed to find a way to salvage their season and put themselves potentially in a series where they could win, only to drop 6 straight, only to look completely disinterested, only to lose the games that they've lost over the last 2 weeks. I would not blame you if you've said, I'm out on this team. I'm done. It has been a rough season. It's been a rough go. But all the while, this Magic team has tried to fight. Maybe they're not the level that we thought they'd be. Maybe they're not meeting the expectations we set for themselves. Maybe they're not playing to the standard that they have set for themselves. But there are still games ahead of them, and there is still an opportunity. As slim as it might be, there is still a chance for this team to get out of the play-in tournament, to set themselves up for success. There is still a chance that this team could be healthy with Franz Wagner returning and now Anthony Black back in the lineup. ultimately, whether you're going to believe in what this team can accomplish or what is achievable for the final 3 games of the season, it's going to come down to what you see on the court. And so the Orlando Magic, if you just look at the scoreboard, scored this seemingly comfortable win over the Detroit Pistons, a 123-107 victory, a victory that saw the Magic go up by 26 points in the third quarter, a victory that saw the Magic take the lead by double digits several times. Pistons made their push back. The Magic pushed it back out. You saw a team that does what a winning team against, frankly, injury-plagued Pistons team, or not injury-plagued. They're resting guys. They've wrapped up the number 1 seed in the East. Like, even Pistons fan, even our friend Kuka Heel of Locked On Pistons said at one point in the third quarter, they didn't really have the fight in them from the beginning. That's okay. Not the end of the world. This isn't like the number 1 seed Pistons we're watching tonight. And again, credit to Pistons for fighting back the way they did and never giving up on the game. They found their groove and the Magic got a little lazy. But the Magic, for the most part in this game, did their job. And even when the Pistons did cut that 26-point lead down to 4, Orlando went on a 14-2 stretch to win the game. They did the things that they're supposed to do to win games. They got steals. They created turnovers. They used that to create offense. Jalen Suggs hit a big 3. Then Jalen Suggs got a steal and a wraparound pass to Goga Batadze. And then Paolo Banchero got a steal. Got the ball out in transition. Suggs pushed it up quickly. Got it to, I believe, Desmond Bane at the foul line. He kicked it to Tristan da Silva for a 3. And that was that. Again, that's 3, 6, 8 points of that 14-2 run that put this game finally away. And as I've said a million times, at this point of the season, it does not matter how you win. It only matters that you win, because the Magic's path to escape the play-in tournament, which we'll talk about a little bit more tomorrow, as well as a little bit at the end of this episode, the Magic's path to escape the play-in tournament is a very narrow one. But the number one thing it depends on is the Magic winning. So all those dreams, all those possibilities, as they dim the lights on me, everything is still on the table for the Orlando Magic, as long as they win. And regardless of what you want to say about the way or the process or the skill or the execution or the details, which are all important, I'm not dismissing them. Right now, the Magic are winning. Right now, the Magic are taking care of their business. Since March 26th, the Magic are 5-2. Now, they shouldn't be 5-2 because their stats say a 109.5 offensive rating and a 114.3 defensive rating. They're underwater. But of course, the 2 losses are the 2 biggest outliers possible. A 52-point loss to the Toronto Raptors and a 29-point loss to the Atlanta Hawks. Especially in a small 7-game sample, that's going to weigh you down. But in the 5 wins, that includes tonight's game where the Magic finished with I'm going to pull it up here. Sorry about that. They don't have it up yet. Including tonight's game against the Pistons, where the Magic played pretty well on both ends of the floor for the most part. Oh, great. My stat sheet isn't working. I know entering today's game, taking out those 2 losses, the Magic looked pretty good. Like a 116, 117 offensive rating, 108, 109 defensive rating. Now you might be saying, like, okay, Phil, that's all well and good. You're taking out the losses, and those are 2 pretty bad losses. But you might also be saying, like, yeah, context matters. They played the Sacramento Kings. They played the Dallas Mavericks. They played the New Orleans Pelicans. They got a nice win over the Phoenix Suns in that stretch. They played a Detroit Pistons team without Cade Cunningham and Tobias Harris. And you're absolutely right. Like, the Suns win was a nice win. Phoenix is struggling a little bit right now. The Phoenix Suns win was a legitimate win over a team, and the Magic did the same thing that they did at the end of the New Orleans game. They did the same thing they did for the first 3 quarters of the Dallas game. Against Phoenix, they dominated for really 2 quarters for the first half, let go of the rope a little bit in the third quarter, and then finished the game off in the fourth with some big plays and some big buckets. I won't sit here and tell you the Magic are back. I'm going to ask a question. Let's say, is it okay to believe again? I'm not going to sit here and tell you the Magic are a playoff team or are playing like a high-level playoff team right now. They are not. They are struggling with a lot of very basic and simple things. They're missing too many free throws. They're turning the ball over in weird ways. They go away from what works. They don't always execute to the highest level that they can execute. But at the end, none of it matters as long as you find your way to win. None of it matters so long as you take care of your business and get these victories. Because at the end of the day, if you take care of your business will take care of you. Is it okay to believe again? I'll say this. I thought tonight's game was going to be the tipping point game. I thought tonight's, of the 4 games the Magic had left on their schedule, I thought tonight was going to be the most difficult. Second night of a back-to-back. Orlando finished 9-5 on the second night. It's a back-to-backs. Go figure. Second night of a back-to-back. A Detroit team that is very good even without Cade Cunningham and has been playing very well. 8-2 in the 10 game, and are now 8-3, but 8-2 entering this game in the 10 games Cunningham missed. And again, just a team that does so many things right. The Magic are doing something right now. There's no getting around it. And here's their numbers. In the Magic's 5 wins in the last 7 games, they have a 117.3 offensive rating and a 109.2 defense rating. Plus 8.1 net rating is not nearly among the best of that group. They're still playing a lot of close games. In fact, 8.1 is 22nd in the league out of 26 teams that have won in their since March 26th. There's still work to do for this Magic team. I'm not telling you, start betting on the Magic to win a playoff series. Right now, they're just scratching out wins. Right now, they're figuring out what the game needs and doing it. And they're playing some really brilliant basketball for much longer stretches. Is that where we want to be? Is that where we wanted to be at this point of the year? Absolutely not. This is not the Magic we hoped for. But the Magic are also playing better. And that is why we can believe again. That is why when we look forward to the next 3 games, Minnesota on the second night of a back-to-back coming from Indiana, likely without Anthony Edwards. Chicago, a tanking team that just fired their GM. The Boston Celtics, who will likely have wrapped up the 2 seed by the time we get to them. A Philadelphia 76ers team that's, those are the 4 games, those are the 3 games left. All 3 feel imminently winnable. And despite the Magic's ups and downs, it feels like this team is capable of winning them. That's what the Magic proved Monday night against the Pistons. Maybe there is a little bit of hope, even if the Magic aren't quite right yet.
The tournament is here, one of the best times of the year. Brackets, buzzer beaters, upsets, it's non-stop action from tip to final cutdown. And right now, FanDuel is giving new customers a way to stay in the action all tournament long. Here's how it works. You can get up to $300 back in bonus bets every single day for 10 days. That means 10 chances to stay involved throughout the entire tournament. You can mix it up however you want. Games, futures, or same-game parlays for even bigger payouts. It's perfect for the tournament because every day there's something new. Different matchups, new storylines, and more ways to get involved as the bracket unfolds. So visit FanDuel.com to sign up today. That's FanDuel.com to get in on the action. Welcome back to the Big Six in 60. The Denver Nuggets had to battle for a win last night, but they got it done in overtime against the Trailblazers. Here's Swipo from Locked On Nuggets with his full reaction.
There are so many places to begin. There are so many places to start in this game, but obviously, we have to start with the best player in the world that a lot of people are taking for granted, that a lot of people are saying is this, and that. Nikola Jokic today had 35 points, 14 rebounds, 13 assists, 5 steals, and 2 blocks. 35, 14, 13, 5 steals, 2 blocks. And mind you, he had 10 points, 2 rebounds, 3 assists, and a steal in the fourth quarter. Jokic came back into the game down, I think, 115 to 101, and absolutely put it to the Portland Trailblazers. And y'all, if you were watching this game, the Denver Nuggets in this situation, they were absolutely getting obliterated and shredded by the three-point shot for the Portland Trailblazers. Y'all, the Portland Trailblazers in this game made 25 three-pointers. 25. They got outscored at the three-point line by 39 points. Now, the Nuggets, they scored 66 points in the paint versus the Trailblazers. That ended up being the thing that doomed the Trailblazers. But in this game, they got outscored from the three-point line by 39 points. They got outscored from the free throw line by 2 points. And the Nuggets, it's not even like all the threes were like open threes. At some point, they started getting step-back, sidestep threes from Drew Holiday that was bouncing off the back of the rim onto the backboard and into the basket. And then Tamani Kamara, who was having an exceptional day, he went 8 of 13 from 3. So just for context, Tamani Kamara, 8 of 13 from 3. Drew Holiday, 5 of 13 from 3. Donovan Clingan, 3 of 6 from 3. Scoot Henderson, 4 of 8 from 3. Matisse Thybulle, 4 of 6 from 3. So you're kind of catching my drift. These are not elite shooters. The Denver Nuggets are the best three-point shooting team in the league. The Portland Trailblazers are the 29th ranked three-point shooting team in the NBA. The Nuggets today only made 12 of 38 threes, and they got beat, like I said, by 39, and it ended up not mattering. And some of this is simple as this. Jokic was able to find a way to get everyone involved and to start taking over the scoring again down the stretch. And he really made play after play after play after play. You know, Jokic started off the game really well. He had 12.6 rebounds, 4 assists, 2 steals, and a block in the first quarter. He was actually really engaged. He got 2 blocks on the lob attempts that the Portland Trailblazers try to throw over the top of him to Robert Williams and to Donovan Clingan. But he actually was really engaged at the top. But in the second quarter, he went 0 of 5 from the field. And then in the third quarter, he went 5 of 10 from the field. So he actually only had one quarter in which he was just absolutely missing everything. He was 0 of 2 from 3 in the second as well, had 2 turnovers. But Jokic, he just kept staying with it. And because he did that, that helped for the Denver Nuggets to get back into the game, to get the lead again, and then for them to be able to close it out as well. And, you know, I keep saying this, and I'm going to keep saying this to everybody up here. Y'all, just don't take Jokic for granted. And I know that's not something that many of us will do here. And obviously, you know, we talk about Jokic, and, you know, we talk to our friends or our family about Jokic. But I will say this. Jokic being able to get to the point where he's able to put up these stat lines and play this well, and over this win streak, he's averaging 26, 14, and 13. Y'all, this is a once-in-a-lifetime player. And what was so frustrating about Jokic's game today is that Jokic didn't get his first free throws until 2 minutes and 13 seconds left into the fourth quarter. 2 minutes and 13 seconds were remaining in the fourth before he took his first free throws, and it just didn't make sense. It's like he was getting mauled. Jokic in this game shot the ball 31 times, and he had 4 free throws. And I think, and a lot of this is just the whistle that he doesn't benefit from, whether it's from the hacks on the pass outs, or it's on him going up on these layups, or traveling through the paint with speed and trying to get to the basket, or the push off that he gets when he's driving, you try to dislodge him from the spot. He just doesn't get those calls. Whereas on the other end, Denny Advia in this game had 26 points. He had 6 made baskets. He had 14 free throws in this game. 14. And his whole bag today was going after Jamal Murray, going after Christian Brown, or anybody that was smaller than him, and trying to basically right trigger on the Xbox his way to the basket, where he just forces contact with the smaller player, and they have no choice but to blow the whistle, and they're not going to blow it against him for doing this every possession. They then will blow it against the defender, because the defender at this point is trying to establish their own space. So, like, how are you going to be able to do that if you have a 6'8", 6'9", just dude steamrolling you the whole time? So they had to overcome a lot. And again, like I said, Tamani Kamara was the best player on the floor for the Blazers. The best player on the floor for the Blazers. And it was just those 3-pointers that he was hitting. They were just backbreaking because every single time the Nuggets started getting back into the game, it just didn't matter. They could not get the stops. And even when they were like playing good defense, and I got to give Jokic a lot of credit, because at one point in time, when they started to get into the overtime period, they changed up in the fourth quarter. They changed the coverages up. They had basically been forcing the switch with Jamal Murray and Aaron Gordon or Christian Brown, but it was mostly Christian Brown. They were trying to contain Aaron Gordon's legs, and so they didn't want him to be super involved for the first 3 quarters. But then so what was happening is the Nuggets were trying to either run away from that switch with Jamal, or then they would have to like load up and then like over help, and then they would just over rotate, and then they would leave somebody back open on the weak side. And what I noticed about Denver is that when Denver plays basketball, and that when they do what they're doing on the basketball court defensively, they really have like a gear. Because in this game, I want to say they went on a 36-17 run. Maybe that's what it was. Like, Jokic came back into the game, like I said, I think 115. Let me check. He came back in the game 115-101. And this was with 7:51 left in the game. From that point on, the Denver Nuggets gave up 10 points, and they scored 24 points. The Nuggets went on a 24-10 run, and then versus the Spurs the other day, they did this same thing where when they need to start really strapping on defense, they did, and they started putting Jokic at the level. Jokic forced 2 turnovers in overtime at the level where he was just putting so much pressure on the ball handler for Portland, where one of them was a 24-second shot clock violation, and then another one, Jokic gets up in Thibault's face. He tries to throw it into the interior to the big, but then the ball ends up sailing out of bounds. So Jokic had 7 stocks today, and he was so active and so engaged. And again, just a monster stat line. I'm talking a little bit about him more on the other side, but y'all, man, Aaron Gordon, stories are going to be written about Aaron Gordon's legacy in Denver. In moments like this, they just continue to remind you why he is such a special part in Denver Nuggets history.
The tournament is here, one of the best times of the year. Brackets, buzzer beaters, upsets, it's non-stop action from tip to final cutdown. And right now, FanDuel is giving new customers a way to stay in the action all tournament long. Here's how it works. You can get up to $300 back in bonus bets every single day for 10 days. That means 10 chances to stay involved throughout the entire tournament. You can mix it up however you want. Games, futures, or same-game parlays for even bigger payouts. It's perfect for the tournament because every day there's something new. Different matchups, new storylines, and more ways to get involved as the bracket unfolds. So visit FanDuel.com to sign up today. That's FanDuel.com to get in on the action. Welcome back to the Big Six in 60. The Spurs got the win, but the bigger story is Victor Wembanyama leaving hurt and what it could mean moving forward. Here's Casey Vieira with Locked On Spurs to take you through the situation.
They hit 60 wins, but at the end of the night, the conversation is not just about the 60 wins. The conversation is what's next for Victor Wembanyama. Welcome into the Spurs postcast right here on Locked On Spurs. Of course, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, the number one sports podcast network in the world. He's NBA champion Devin Brown. I'm Casey Vieira. On the heels of another victory for the Spurs, a good bounce back for against the Denver Nuggets, or bounce back against Philadelphia after their loss to the Denver Nuggets. But the big story, Victor Wembanyama today exiting in the first half with a left rib contusion, did not return in the second half because of said injury. Not particularly ideal, just a handful of games above the playoffs. But like we've seen many of times before this season, my friend, that they held it down, they got the dub, and they bounced back tonight in a good way.
Absolutely. We got a lot to talk about. But number one, 60 wins after the last 4 or 5 years. Congratulations, Mitch. The GM, right? They're doing a great job. So, Casey, let's break this down and let's please put the fans at ease about Victor's situation.
This is what you'll be talking about.
In fairness, I think Victor breathes the wrong way. Fans are a little on edge, so I don't know. We could try.
Yeah, I know.
We could try. It's the sentiment that counts. All right, Philly coming in, and they are pretty much the usual suspects that you know by now. Embiid, Maxey, Paul George is back in the equation back from his PED suspension. Has actually been playing well recently. They're right in the middle of that 5 to 10 spot range area in the Eastern Conference. So they have a lot to play for because only 2 games in the East separating 5 from 10. They were currently in 6th coming into tonight. Believe it or not, it was very much Joel Embiid against Victor Wembanyama in the first half, and Embiid looked the part of perhaps, or at least statistically, of prime Embiid. I was there for the first half. I told Devin the way he was moving, I said, I might be able to close out harder on shooters than Embiid at this point, but whatever works, man. He got the job done. Embiid put up 20 in the first half, but that's not really the story, because also happening in the first half, despite Victor Wembanyama putting up 17 points, he collides with Paul George at midcourt. He goes down. He's down for a couple of minutes. He's holding his left rib shoulder area, checks out, checks back in a little bit later in the first half, and he looks relatively the part, at least from the naked eye. He would not come back second half, though, despite the Spurs being on top 62-55 through 2 quarters of play. Philly, they had a couple cracks at it to get within a 1-score game. They were within 5, but Stephon Castle really owned the night, really owned the tempo. He zeroed in on a triple-double in the first half, and they didn't really lose any ground. Still up by 7 at the end of 3 quarters of play, and same deal. They blow it up to a 13, 14-point lead. Dylan Harper gets involved. Philly gets a couple of cracks in there to really try to make these things interesting. But there was this one sequence towards the back end of the fourth quarter. They're within 9. Maxey gets a turnover. Keldon block. Dylan Harper finished on the other end. And for all intents and purposes, put the game away. Ultimately reads a 115-102 victory for San Antonio. Of course, that 60th win. Stephon Castle with 19, 10, and 13. Harper with 17, De'Aaron Fox with 13 as well. The Victor Wembanyama update, this just coming by from, of course, Matt Tynan, the host of the title pod Locked on Spurs, just a short while ago from Mitch Johnson. He says he knows nothing about Victor Wembanyama at this point, but said from his perspective, it's a positive he came back and played through the first half. That's obviously what overshadows things, so we'll start with that aspect of it, my friend. A rib injury, a week plus from the playoffs. Not, there's worse injuries one could have, but if you want to talk about a real nagging one going into the final stretch, going into the most physical time of the year, that's a rib injury. Yeah.
So the Spurs obviously have to be very quiet about this right now, and they should be. You got guys like Dylan Brooks, Draymond Green, the front line from Portland, paying attention to this, because they know first time they play against them, we got the Blazers on Wednesday, and I'm assuming Victor's going to be out for that one because of everything, first round and all this kind of stuff. But you have players around the league that are going to pay attention to this because he is 7'5". I'm not 7'5", you're not 7'5", half the people guarding him aren't 7'5". So the first area you're going to try and attack is that rib area. All right. Now, some of your worst injuries come when you don't even know it's going to happen. Now, I knew, when I broke my ankle, and that was about it for my career. I broke my left ankle. But I suffered a L3, L4 contusion in my back, and I didn't even feel it when it happened on the play, Casey. I didn't even feel it. So this looked like one of those type injuries, trying to catch the ball, your body's kind of twisted like this. He gets hit, and only Victor knows what happened at that point. So whatever happened at that point, he felt some discomfort, And it was, you know, you don't ask the trainers, you don't talk to any of them. You say, no, I don't feel good. I'm going to sit out. That's what he did. Casey, until we know further, you know, obviously you want him to, he'll be back for the playoffs, but at what percentage? And I think that's what everybody's worried about. So right now, we can't speculate. We got to wait and see what it is that we can, you know, get out of Victor.
Mm-hmm. It's funny because I thought you summed it up pretty well right there. Is that it feels like you could not kind of write this. Things were going too smooth for the Spurs, I feel like, on that front, right? And I feel like we were just kind of destined to hit some sort of little funky adversity like this
Right.
the rest of the way going into the playoffs. Like, losing to Denver is one thing. It's at the end of the game. It's not. And at the end of the day, it is one game. And you know, I felt a ways about it. You feel a way about it. This is the type of thing that has a chance to impact a lot of games.
Yeah.
I can't. You know, we're not there. We're not getting the X-rays. We're not getting the MRIs. But I'd imagine a broken rib would have a much more dramatic viewpoint, or at least end result from watching from the stands. And from when I saw it from the stands, it looked like a guy getting hit, getting back up. He looked okay, but only Victor knows what he feels. So that's, of course, the worst case scenario. But the fact that it's this in a point where you're just in the toughest part of the season and you're playing the most physical basketball, and just kind of the natural shooting motion of what it is, for all we know, like just simply putting your hands up in the air, if that's going to be bugging him, like this is not great. This is not great at all.
The tournament is here, one of the best times of the year. Brackets, buzzer beaters, upsets, it's non-stop action from tip to final cutdown. And right now, FanDuel is giving new customers a way to stay in the action all tournament long. Here's how it works. You can get up to $300 back in bonus bets every single day for 10 days. That means 10 chances to stay involved throughout the entire tournament. You can mix it up however you want. Games, futures, or same-game parlays for even bigger payouts. It's perfect for the tournament because every day there's something new. Different matchups, new storylines, and more ways to get involved as the bracket unfolds. So visit FanDuel.com to sign up today. That's FanDuel.com to get in on the action. The New York Giants suddenly have a massive offseason issue after Dexter Lawrence requested a trade, with the all-pro defensive tackle now at the center of one of the biggest stories in the league. Here's Patricia Traina from Locked On Giants with more.
So, Dexter's not happy. And if I'm being totally honest with you, last year, you could see the frustration on Dexter's face. The personality was so different for Dexter Lawrence. Dexter's always been very kind of happy-go-lucky, jovial type. You know, you could go up to him, you could joke with him and, you know, share a laugh and whatnot. And the season last year, which was a rough one for Dexter, both personally, you know, in terms of his own performance and just with the team losing, it took its toll on him. And I think, you know, between the losing, between Dexter not being fully healthy, between, you know, the very slow start he got off to because he came into camp, I had heard, overweight and out of shape. I think, you know, the whole thing with Carl Banks calling him out, which, you know, is Carl's opinion. He's entitled to do that. I think all of that ate away at Dexter. That, and plus, you know, being a captain and people's questioning, hey, you know, why aren't you talking to Abdul Carter when Abdul Carter was, you know, not pulling his weight and doing what he was supposed to be. So that, and then you also throw in the fact that every time Dexter Lawrence was taken off the field, the team just, it was obvious. You could see that he was missing. It was like a black hole almost in terms of that defensive front. And then it got to the point where, were they pushing him to go out there, or were they pulling him back, or what exactly were they doing? So all of that added up to frustration for Dexter Lawrence. And at the end of last year, during Baggy Day, Dexter didn't talk to the media. But before that, Dexter had spoken to the media. You could tell the man was frustrated. All right. Now we learned that to add to those frustrations, he was trying to get some guaranteed money and some financial security on his contract, which, as I've said before on the show, even though Dexter has 2 more years left on the 4-year extension he signed, he has no more guaranteed money. So if you've watched every day, you know that I have said that Dexter's contract is one that the Giants can redo, give him a little bit more money, give him, the guaranteed money, throw in a voidable year if you have to, and you can lower his cap hit for this year and open up a whole bunch of cap space to get you through the season. That has not happened. Now, I can only guess what is going on from the Giants' perspective. I don't know this for a fact, but I'm going to take a guess here, an educated guess. The Giants don't want to do a full-fledged renewal because they feel, okay, you know what? You got 2 years left. Let me see you bounce back from last year's off year, which, by the way, as I will get to a little later on in the show, even though some of the numbers were bad, it wasn't quite as bad as maybe we all think it was. So who knows? Maybe the Giants are like, okay, you know what, Dexter? You get back to being the guy that we saw in 2024 before the elbow injury, then we'll talk turkey. To which Dexter is probably saying, I am the same guy. I was hurt. I was this, that, and the other thing. Where's the love and the loyalty? I went out there. I busted my butt for you. And where's the loyalty? So I wouldn't be surprised if that's where the stalemate has come up. Now, there was also a report that the Giants were approached last year by teams looking to trade for Dexter Lawrence. And Joe Shane was like, nope, not having it. Which, you kind of expected. At the time, Dexter, was in a down year, but he wasn't horrible. It wasn't like he went right off the cliff. So all of that. And then you look at, maybe Dexter being out in Seattle cheering on Leonard Williams, his old running mate, and watching him go all the way to a Super Bowl. And you just wonder if all of that kind of came together in a perfect storm to where now Dexter is just not feeling it with the Giants. Even though, John Harbaugh has infused all kinds of energy and optimism, whatnot, Dexter's probably just not feeling it. He's been with the team since 2019. This one of 2 guys, Darius Slayton being the other, who have been with the team the longest. All right, so we have this whole situation now where everything's kind of working against Dexter Lawrence. That's probably why he wants out. It's like, if you're not going to give me financial security, which, again, who can blame him? Guy goes out there and, he wasn't himself last year, but again, part of that was his doing. Part of it was the previous coaching staff's doing, right? You might recall that I spoke about how I didn't understand why during training camp Dexter Lawrence's reps were limited, right? You saw him in the one-on-one drills. You saw him in the 7-on-7s. You didn't really see him a whole lot in the 11-on-11s. I questioned why that was. I'm like, why are they still babying him? Especially when at the Pro Bowl games, months before, he was partaking in tug-of-war, which to me told me that elbow maybe wasn't as bad of a problem as maybe the Giants thought it was. And then, you go through the season and you see that, Dexter's just not, the stamina's lacking a little bit. And he got better. Let's give him credit where it's due. He did get better as the year went on. But you just wonder about the whole handling of his situation and if that just kind of contributed to the perfect storm that he went through, which I think it did, by the way. So you have a frustrated Dexter Lawrence on your hands. But you know what, folks? You still have a pretty good player, despite the fact that his numbers last year went downhill. I had to laugh because, Andre Patterson, now the former defensive line coach, stood in front of the media when people questioned him about why Dexter's numbers had fallen off a cliff. And he says, oh, it's hard for, a guy to, an interior guy to do that, year in and year out. It's really not if you're healthy and you've got everything together. I don't buy that argument. I never did. You hear, you heard Patterson say, oh, Dexter's still drawing the double teams. Okay, yeah, he was. And I get that. Double teams are not easy to beat, but Dexter wasn't even beating the single teams on a regular basis. So you just kind of knew, your eyes were telling you that something wasn't right, whether it was stamina, whether it was the elbow, whatever the case may be. And, Dexter now has an opportunity that hopefully he's in tip-top shape, rejuvenated, and ready to go. It's just a question of where is he going to go? All right, Giant fans, coming up next, I asked my Locked On colleagues to make me an offer for Dexter Lawrence.
That's all for today's Big 6 in 60. If you follow basketball, football, or college sports, the Big 3 in 30 has a half hour on the biggest news in the NFL, the NBA, and on campus, going up every weekday just like this one. Just search the Big 3 in 30 NBA, the Big 3 in 30 NFL, or the Big 3 in 30 college, wherever you're listening or watching now. Thanks again for tuning in to the Big 6 in 60.